We welcome you to this online discussion about Angel Hernandez and the lawsuit that has been going on since 2017. MLB has filed a response motion essentially asking the court to dismiss it again. I'm with T-Mac and I'm Gil. And the takeaway I had on this was a very unique paragraph buried way in the middle where MLB says there is a, quote, total absence of any evidence of a demonstrable diversity problem. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about so much more. But first, let's try to start chronologically with what MLB is trying to do here. And I'm going to bring up what MLB brought up, which was that Angel Hernandez filed this claim in 2017, and there, according to civil procedure, are statutes that preclude earlier years. There's essentially the statute of limitations, whether it is the 300 days, 3 years, or 4 years, because there are multiple codes being argued that say that anything that happened in, say, 2012 or 13 is inadmissible for this case. So I thought it's a legally solid argument per se. It could be if the procedure is that, which I always find interesting. But at the same time, I just think with the current culture that we have, it's always interesting in a racially motivated discrimination setting to say there might have been discrimination back then. We don't think there was, but there might have been, but it's outside the statute of limitations, so you can't talk about it. Let's bring in T-Mac for his take. He read the same thing I did.
Yeah, holy smoke. I guess we live in a world where, this is, if you sue your employer, they're going to come back and attack. But what I've been amazed at is the vague language in this, what would we call it? It's not a deposition, but it's the way Major League Baseball is characterizing a lot of things is very vague, like doesn't show leadership qualities consistently. I mean, how do you say somebody does do that? I mean, you could look great in 15 straight incidents, but you have one incident that stands out. I mean, I can tell you firsthand, I spent 15 years of my life staying off of YouTube, but now everybody knows me for one YouTube video, right? That's gotten millions and millions of views. So if you just watch that, you'd think, oh, this guy's a terrible umpire. And you might be right. However, that doesn't mean that I don't possess leadership qualities that go above and beyond that one moment. If we are all measured at our worst moments, then we are all doomed to failure. And that's the standard that Major League Baseball has for its umpires, in this case, Angel Hernandez.
The interesting thing here is that we're talking about worst moments, and MLB has used Angel's purported worst moments to try to defend this suit. And I suppose that it just makes sense. Logically, it makes sense if you're a defendant and you're saying, well, you have to justify your hiring or promotion decisions. It makes sense to show people's permanent records. And so for Angel Hernandez specifically, they mentioned the 2012 no-hitter by Homer Bailey. Angel went in, tried to get autographs for the crew, and MLB disciplined him for that because you're not supposed to do that. But what I notice is that for every one of these, Angel is going to have a response. I'll get to that in a second. So MLB brings up the 2012 Homer Bailey one. They also brought up the 2013 Cleveland, remember Cleveland, Oakland, and it was the double that was a home run.
Yeah, a flip phone had a bigger screen that was in that replay hallway.
So and speaking to that, what's noticeable is, so Angel calls it a home run. Afterward, he says the screen that we had wasn't good enough. The quality wasn't good enough. Sharp aquos, whatever it was. I don't even think it was HD for that matter, but it wasn't good enough for me to actually see if it was a home run or not from the angle and from all of this, from the quality. MLB didn't really say much about that. But you'll notice the next year they changed the entire system and everything was HD. Additionally with that, you get these as Angel Hernandez responds to them, because this is part of the example of Joe Torre saying Angel won't let this thing go. He just will not let the 2013 Cleveland thing go. And Angel's side is, well, I blew the whistle on your deficient video technology and you changed your entire system the next year. So maybe I shouldn't be letting it go because maybe it was a bad system to begin with. Neither here nor there. That was his response to that was talking about the technology, as well as saying that Jerry Meals, I don't know why when I switch videos it won't spotlight me, but it was saying that Jerry Meals, who allegedly got a call wrong in Atlanta, the extra inning game against Pittsburgh, slide at home plate, called someone safe and ended the game. Maybe he was out. And Angel saying the statement that MLB put out for my blown call versus Jerry's blown call was so disproportionately beneficial for him, and my statement was not beneficial or protective of me, that's evidence of disparate treatment, which is necessary for a discrimination claim. And relative to the 2012 no-hitter asking for autographs from the pitcher, Randy Marsh, White crew chief, also got disciplined, and it's on deposition record. Randy Marsh admits that he got disciplined for a very similar thing. So I find it interesting that MLB is bringing those things up, but Angel has a response for each one of them.
Yeah, I feel, you brought up Randy Marsh, having read his deposition, Randy had a really hard time remembering a lot of things, and a lot of things that were verifiable in his deposition, including saying that when the umpires got locked out of the resignation situation back in 1999, that Angel took the rest of the season off, and that was just a lie. He took 2 weeks off, and who knows if that was even vacation, and came back. And Angel, if you look at his career, has not missed games. Randy Marsh claimed that he was injured. I mean, how do we know if he was injured or not? And if he was injured, I mean, whose business is it of Randy Marsh's whether he was hurt or not? He was not the supervisor at the time. And not only that, but I was very disappointed in reading some quotes, which included a very questionable description of how the Major League Baseball umpire camp minority umpires only want to go to the big leagues, and they don't want to go through the stuff that it takes. This is Randy Marsh talking, to go through all the levels. They just want to go straight to the big leagues. And he said, I'd have to look at it again, but it was like, it was just really bad, tough, horrible language. And, I'm really disappointed in not only are there sections that were not true, but it loses for me credibility as to what the other things that you say. So how do we know that Randy Marsh is telling the truth about a lot of these things? We just don't, because he couldn't remember a lot of the things that he said in his deposition. And I'm sure, Gil, as I was going through this, you looked up the quote that he said, or maybe you didn't. But if I know you, no, you didn't. Okay. I was gonna say, if I know you, you did.
Well, we can, was that under the deposition?
That was in the deposition. Yeah. Where I was mortified at some of the stuff that was in there. I mean, it was what I like to call subconscious racism. You don't go around saying those things, and thinking that you're being racist, but it's creeped into your subconscious. It's systemic. It's the things that we're talking about over and over again in the public, and it happened. As far as I'm concerned, in some of the things in the deposition. Now, does that mean that in the case of Angel Hernandez, that he's been discriminated against? That's a whole nother can of worms that the court system is going to have to figure out.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is you can bring up the racism, and that's a very divisive issue. For whatever reason, people go one of whatever way they go. But it's always helpful to bring up numbers and facts. And let's bring up the stats. And the stats are, according to Angel Hernandez's lawsuit, he used this in his argument, and we fact-checked it to make sure that he was telling the truth about this, and he was. At the time that he filed the suit in 2017, there hadn't been a minority crew chief since Richie Garcia in the 90s. There's a full-time minority crew chief. So we went nearly, let's say, 20 years without a minority crew chief. What I find really interesting is that you can say that MLB hired Kerwin Danley and Alfonso Marquez, and they deserved to be crew chiefs for a long time. They finally got hired prior to 2020, and if that season ever gets played. But the lawsuit was filed in 2017, and the window that opens the door to use current events, because MLB has used current events trying to say, oh, he can't do it because of the 2018 ALDS, where he was overturned thrice in one game. What they don't mention is that Larry Vanover, White crew chief, was also overturned 3 times in a game earlier than Angel was. And what they also don't mention is that Angel came back the next day and had the highest plate score of the entire series. And they also mentioned the 2019 substitution delay in Tampa Bay. But what they don't mention is that Fielding Culbreth, White crew chief, also had a rules debacle on his hands. He's still a crew chief. Angel is not. Now, the stats that we were going to give were based on 2016, because again, the suit was filed in 2017, so you have to use the last full season 2016 numbers. For your consideration, however you want to consider it, whether you say that it's related, whether you say it's not, up to you. For MLB players, the league-wide composition was 64% white, 27% Latino, 7% black, and 2% Asian. So remember that number, 64% white. And now jump to MLB umpires, 89% white. So that's 25% higher, or what we would call an overrepresentation. 5% Latino, so that's 22% less, or what we call an underrepresentation. 6% black, it's not statistically significant, it's only a percent difference. And 0% Asian, it's also difficult with that low of a percentage to figure out. But we go on to crew chiefs, and there's only one number, 100% white. This is back in 2016. So use that how you will. But what, again, I started it this way, and I'll bring it up now as we end it. When MLB said there is a total absence of any evidence of a demonstrable diversity problem, that became notable with me. It stuck out because the next sentence said, oh, by the way, we're not responsible for our hiring pool. They point the finger at minor league baseball. So I think it's really interesting where Joe Torre and Tim, I know you have a better grasp of this than I do because you brought it up to me. But when MLB says, Angel's problem is he doesn't let things go and he blames everyone else. And then MLB says, oh yeah, it's actually minor league baseball who hires the umpires.
Yeah, crazy, huh? So talk about not wanting to take blame. Major League Baseball loves giving just little nudges to minor league baseball, and for whatever reason, they don't want to take any blame. So there are no women in the big leagues. Blame minor league baseball. There are a lack of minority representation, people of color in the big leagues as far as umpires are concerned. Blame minor league baseball. It's their fault. Blame the teams. It's their fault. But don't take any personal responsibility. Look, I don't want to get into what a supervisor had said to me back in, the early 2000s. It's a much different world now. But let me just say this, that if that culture was existing then, and there are similar people that are still in charge, okay, then you would have an issue of possibly hiring females. I have been amazed at the lack of diversity as far as women goes in minor league baseball, as far as umpiring is concerned. There's no reason you can't go and make it a point of emphasis to develop. So Justine Siegel, of Baseball for All, she has a lot of camps that she runs, a lot of tournaments that she runs with all girls, and there's no excuse that she's worked for the Oakland A's. You develop umpires out of players. It's no different for the most part from males or females. And what a better way to get a female into umpiring baseball. She's got a lot of young ladies, girls playing baseball, culture to play baseball. And that's where we need to go in order to find the future, female baseball umpires. Hockey, they've worked on diversity plans. They have females in their minor leagues. Basketball, NFL, they have females in the big league or in their top structure. But Major League Baseball, way behind on this, way behind, and it has been for decades.
Yes, so it's a tough thing to talk about and try to figure it out. But again, we're at a point in our society, for better or worse, where this is coming to a head. And some people are all for having that talk, and some people don't want to. And much like MLB, with the, quote, total absence of any evidence of a demonstrable diversity problem, won't even acknowledge it. And that's fine however you fall on that spectrum. But we deal in statistics. The entire baseball season, we are doing statistics. That's a large mission of what UEFL is about. And when the statistics show such a disparity of percentages and representation, and I haven't even talked about general society, what the population looks like. When there's such a disparity between players and umpires, and then between crew chiefs and non-crew chiefs, that catches my eye as a statistically significant thing. And what I find really interesting as well was MLB, as part of this motion, had an expert witness that said, this isn't statistically significant. The differences are not statistically. And I thought that it was quite an interesting argument to make and basically say, those numbers, not really important.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, I don't know per se whether Angel Hernandez has been discriminated against by the law. But if you think for a second there isn't a problem, okay, your question is now whether you want to be on the right side of the issue or the wrong side of the issue. I am going to choose to be on the right side of the issue, in that Major League Baseball, much like the NFL has just said, we're on the wrong side of this, needs to get on the diversity bandwagon, and they need to do it fast. I mean, the fact that they're doing this right now in the culture that we're in to one of their umpires, as far as I'm concerned, is embarrassing. This just happens to be the time they'll say this. Just happens to be the way it's playing out. But, quite frankly, it makes me wonder why they're fighting so hard to throw out all the evidence over a certain period of time. Well, were they guilty then? It's certainly, a cop will tell you if you're not guilty, then why are you running? Well, if, in my opinion, if a cop is, cops can be pretty scary, and they can also be pretty nice, to a certain degree. But you know what I mean? It's like, if you're not guilty, then why are you hiding this information, or why are you saying it shouldn't be relevant? Does that make any sense to you, Gil?
Yeah, this is a discussion that's going to be had. There's a lot of transparency. We always talk about transparency and how that a lot of times saves the day, and that's our mission here. That's why we're talking about what we're talking about, because the popular take on this issue is going to be predictably that Angel Hernandez is supposedly not a good umpire. And that's the beginning and the end of it. Is he's trying to compensate for not being a good umpire by filing this, and he's making something out of nothing. And our job here is just to look at all of the facts that are presented to us. And there are some things that Angel has done wrong throughout his career. There are some things he's done right, but no one is without fault in any matter. And the question here is MLB doing a good job here in terms of promoting its minority crew chief positions? And obviously, when it's 100% for nearly 20 years, my personal opinion is the answer must be no, but your mileage may vary. But the question is, are we getting the correct hiring, promotion, etc. decisions being made? Is it a discriminatory area? And it's very difficult because, as you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of subconscious things that go on there, so that, it just happened to come out at 100% white. We didn't mean for that to happen, but it did. And the question is, okay, well, how do we investigate why? And and some people will say, why is that even a bad thing? That's just how it works. And the question is, well, when you do statistics, you learn real quick that when the data is either at 100% or 0%, there is something really, really wonky happening, and you look further into it. And that's why we're having this discussion.
Yeah, one of the things I love about the podcast, there was at the top of the list when Officials Depot sent out the best podcasts the other day. Thank you for that. We do work hard. We talk about topics that no one else is talking about. It's not always fun. They're not always easy. They're not always glossy and shiny. But, I think it's interesting, too, that they referenced Angel's replay numbers a couple of times, right, in this latest stuff. However, his on-field evaluations were really excellent. So the fact that they don't consider on-field evaluations all that much to make postseason is kind of alarming, because that means they're just picking and choosing. And that's a lot of what we talked about, why we've seen umpires who have had bad replay seasons not make the postseason. I think, Gil, there's a lot of thought to that, is the umpires are getting overturned are not making the postseason, because that's what is being looked at by the powers that be, not necessarily the course of a year. You can have a year that you just have like 15 close calls in a month, and you're just going, oh my God. And they're just, crazy plays. Guys are, doing swim moves and what have you. And you just, seems like no matter where you go, the plays just come to find you. That doesn't mean you're a bad umpire. Jerry Davis, what did he have one year? 20 overturned calls? That doesn't mean he's a bad umpire. It just means he had a tough year. It is what it is. So I think everybody getting wrapped up in, the statistics are, over the long haul, they're going to play out, pretty average. But over the short term, 1 year they mentioned, I think, what did Angel have 12 overturns? So I guess that's a bad year. According to who? According to Major League Baseball, when they're evaluating you, and your on-field evaluations are good.
Right. Yeah. I have this. I have the spreadsheet somewhere. I'll just read it out. It was the 2016 season that was mentioned for replay, and there were a lot of umpires who were not named Angel Hernandez who had more overturned calls than he did. He had 12 overturns. Other umpires with 12 or more overturns that year included Jerry Davis, 16, Paul Emmel, 14, John Hirschbeck, 13, Dan Asania, 22, Jerry Meals, 15, Miller, 12, Reynolds, 12, Scott, 12, Timmons, 17. So you can say you're singling him out all you want in terms of trying to dispute a finding or something. Dan Asania obviously has been promoted to crew chief. Angel Hernandez hasn't. And you can go through statistics all day to find the stuff. And if you go through our website, we've analyzed this Angel Hernandez suit way back in 2017 when it started. We started off with 2 very, very long articles analyzing all of this stuff. And we haven't let up ever since. And so if you go on the site, you can see all of the statistics, all of the merits that Angel has had, why his claim may have merit, and you might even say why his claim may not have merit. But all the numbers are there. Everything is objectively presented. And at this time, all we're saying is, or can't speak for you, but all I'm saying is the numbers simply don't add up to say that this thing should be summarily dismissed. At the very least, you have to remember, this is not a final decision we're going for. Hernandez is asking for a jury trial. As part of the process to try to get there, you have to have a prima facie case, and we talked about this with Brandon Leopoldis last time on the show about when we had him on to discuss this. You just have to establish that element, and then you can proceed in the suit. And in my opinion, Angel has established that element. And as such, that tells me, at least, that we can move forward. And this is not time to be summarily dismissing this case. We should probably consider moving forward. And Angel, of course, he can call for a summary judgment as well, and that's fine. I think he did. But at the end of the day, I think there's enough there as far as probability is concerned to say that it merits further investigation. What that investigation reveals is completely up to future interpretation. But for now, at least, I have enough in front of me to tell me that there might be something to it, and there might be something that is not quite right.
Yeah, just so I can clarify from earlier, Randy Marsh talking about Angel Hernandez missing time. 1999, the year of the staff resignation, our crew was Joe West, Larry Vanover, Angel, and myself. This is Randy Marsh talking. I was the crew chief, and as a result, West and Vanover had lost their jobs at the times. It says lost her job at the time, but I think they're supposed to be there. Angel said his back was killing him and he couldn't work, and he didn't work the whole month of September, which is not true. If you look it up on RetroSeat, you can see that it's just blatantly false. So I just want to clarify that in case anybody, and again, that is available on courtlistener.com if you pay for it.
Right. Well, that's always 10 cents a page and on Pacer, and you get $30 a quarter for free. But if you go over $30, you're liable to pay the entire amount. Anyway, so you get a discount of $30 as long as you keep your charges under $30. But at $31, you have to pay the entire $31 for the quarter. In any case, let me just
finish with the Randy Marsh stuff, because I think this is important because it shows culture. This is Randy Marsh talking about Harry Wendelstedt reaching out. I know that every year Harry Wendelstedt sent contact to the athletic directors at many major colleges and schools that were mostly African-American students, and sent brochures, everything trying to get them to come to umpire school. The problem is they want the job, but they don't want to be in the big leagues tomorrow, and they don't want to go through all of that. I mean, is that not entirely tone deaf? I mean, that is a direct quote from Randy Marsh.
Yeah, this.
Is that unbelievable?
Do we get sensitivity training at the MLB level, or how does it's a
look? That was the guy that, although they'll say that Joe Torre was picking umpires, right? That was the guy that was in his ear all the time. They said that one of the reasons that Joe Torre was so educated on the rules when he went into the press conferences was because Randy Marsh would explain to him all of the rules situated beforehand. So, that was his right-hand guy, right? That's what he said in public.
Right.
Holy smoke.
Right. I think that, again, transparency is all but a necessity at this point. I think that the more that is revealed one way or another, whether it shows that there's evidence of this or that, is another story. But when we get these objections to hearing more things, or we get claims on statute of limitations, while potentially legally correct and proper from a legal standpoint, from just a human empathy point of view, it just rubs the wrong way. Again, my only issue is when I hear total absence of any evidence of a demonstrable diversity problem, and I'll keep harping on that quote because I think it's so out of place. But when I see something like that, it spurs me to start talking. And when I hear people say, oh, we should just dismiss it because Angel's a bad umpire, I say that there might be something else to it. Whether he's bad or not doesn't matter. There might be something else to it.
Well, okay. Look, all I think umpires and people in general want, and maybe I'm speaking for more people than I should, but I'm going to speak for myself, is equality of opportunity. When I talk, it doesn't matter what the level is, and I've talked to big league guys, minor league guys, college guys, high school guys, 13U guys, and like, Tommy got the game. Believe that Tommy gets how come, Tommy won't step aside? He was worth 13 straight championships, or so-and-so. How come, these guys work? And there are certain people and this is just the way the world is. If you didn't come from AAA or AA, in all likelihood, you're not working the College World Series. I hate to bust your stones, but it's probably not going to happen for you. However, you can work your butt off and do what I do and be the best umpire you can and have fun while you're doing it and have a good time and have the right attitude. But I'm not on the same playing field, nor should I be, from this perspective, as the guy coming straight out of AAA who's got, 1,800 affiliated games under his belt. So equality of opportunity, right? So here's the question. Is Angel Hernandez being given the same opportunity and being judged the same way as other guys? And again, I read this stuff and I go, if he is, then it's by accident, because some of the stuff that is said in these depositions are horrifying. And they are, what I called before. They're not outwardly racist. They're just the thing that Starbucks had the problem with a couple of years ago. Unconscious racism. And this is the culture we have to change in order to move forward.
Well said. Again, at the end of the day, we're still in we haven't heard it. We haven't gotten to the jury or anything like that. Is there enough evidence to go forward? My money's on yes. Yours may vary. We gave you the numbers. CloseCallSports.com. Twitter and Facebook is Umpire Ejections. I'm Gil. That's Tim. And we will see you on the site.